What's up YouTube, DUEL here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you commentary from a live duel at Locals. On the top you've got myself playing Yubel, and on the bottom we have Voiceless Voice. So I lost the dice roll on this one and my opponent got to go first. They activate Pot of Prosperity, and at this point you're kind of trying to dictate what they might be searching for. So this is where you've got to start reading the particular plays, what gets revealed, and then what they ultimately take. If you're starting off with Pot of Prosperity, you're ideally probably digging for that starter as it's something you might be missing, or you're trying to bait out an interaction on that particular Pot of Prosperity. So what I mean by that is when you're seeing these reveals here, Trius is not that great, neither is the Ritual or the two Imperms, so it's either going to be Diviner, which is in my opinion the better starter of the two between that and Low, or of course Low. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you don't interact with the Pot of Prosperity, it then means that if they choose a starter in the form of this Diviner right now and use that as their normal summon, it probably means there isn't another starter, which is why hitting it with an Imperm is probably the most effective choice. You've already seen Trius, so the only thing that they could possibly have that will protect the Diviner would be if they're playing multiple Trius, maybe a little bit random, or if they have top decked the Saravis. So it's a bit of risk and reward, but it's probably worth doing so because the Saravis would protect it later on down the line anyway. We're going to start off with the Dark Beckoning Beast. So normal summoning this to search us out gate of the opening the Spirit Gates, and this one goes through resolved, so our opponent doesn't interact with this one. Now Q1, there's one card along the back row, and then there are 3 more left in the hand, so possibly some hand traps if they've bricked a little bit. So we're going to be activating the gate. The gate is going to get us a second Dark Beckoning. And at this point, it really comes down to, do you massively fear Nibiru, and do you have a way to extend? Now, obviously, I have opened up Samsara D Lotus, so that is going to be my additional normal summon, and then we're going to be using its effect, and this is probably one of the big interaction points, as you see, with Ash Blossom coming down. Now, this is a little bit painful because it will stop that. However, because we do have gates in rotation, we now have that as the ability to discard a card, and not technically bring back Lotus, but I can bring back a second Dark Beckoning Beast, or if I've opened up Spirit, which is exactly what I believe I have, I can choose to bring that back. So we're still in a very good position, even though we have been ashed. We are dealing with one card along the back row, possibly an Imperm, which is why the gate was played in a column that wasn't the center column, just in case. And then we're able to resolve our Spirit, meaning that we don't need to fear an Imperm, because I would like to think that if it was an Imperm, that would have been activated at that exact point. Now, I choose to add the card rather than activate it. Now, technically, prior to this, you could have used that as discard fodder if you had a continuous spell, and this is what a lot of people forget, is if you have a level 10 on the board, gates will actually allow you to recycle a continuous spell from the grave. We activate the Nightmare Pain, and as this resolves, it means that there isn't a Ghost Ogre in there, because more times than not, you would expect Ghost Ogre to hit that. We now don't need to worry about Ash, so we're now able to float into a Yubel. Unfortunately, our opponent doesn't have exactly the strongest monster on the board, so trying to run into that card is not going to be that effective for us. The only hand trap that we probably need to be weary of is Nibiru, and that's why I'm kind of technically holding back the Grave Squirmer. Yes, of course, I do need to control a Fiend monster, but as long as I can maintain that ability or make sure that they've got that extended to get there, Nibiru isn't the biggest threat right now either. So we're going to link 2 into Yama, we're going to use Yama's effect, and this is going to get us our Shavara. And again, why this is quite important to get to the Shavara is it now means that even if they do Nibiru me, as long as I've got a card that can be set along the back row, Shavara can then still summon, and then I can start using the Grave Squirmer as well. So especially summon down the Grave Squirmer, as we do control a Fiend at current, and even then if they activate Nibiru, you just chain the Grave Squirmer, and then they go, okay cool, resolve, Grave Squirmer comes down, gets Nibiru'd, and it's in the graveyard where you want it anyway, so you can bring back your Spirit, and then you can pop the Spirit with your Shavara, and then that will allow you to float the Spirit into normal Yubel, and you've got the ability to link 2 into a Rage. What I'm pretty much, as I'm going second, trying to work my way into is trying to work my way into the Unchained Soul Link 3, because then I can use their monster and then basically link down into an SP Little Knight if I'm not going to attack directly, which I probably am, or I can link down and go into a Rage, get the Rage into the graveyard so that I've got that for rotation should I fail to complete the OTK, but what I'm working towards here is the OTK. So we're going to go with the Unchained Soul of Anguish. We're going to link with the Diviner, and this is going to allow us to get into a Link 4 technically, but you can also down link as long as you go into a Dark Link, being into the Rage. We're going to use Grey Squirmer's effect to bring back the Spirit, and then of course we've got the Shavara in the hand, and we're now going to pretty much go the Princess line, destroying the Spirit, summoning down Shavara, and amazingly, Spirit's Destruction effect is not a hard once per turn. So we're going to be able to use Yama's effect Chain Link 1 and Spirit's effect Chain Link 2. So we're going to bring back Yubel, and then obviously we can use Yama's effect to bring back the Spirit of Yubel as well. And this is going to give us access to the rank 10. I'm just explaining to my opponent whether I am choosing to use Yama's effect to destroy a card on my field or not, just to get me out the Fiend Lock, but honestly I don't need it because now I can use Rage plus the Shavara, to get me into the Princess, trigger off the Shavara's effect, which will get me the trap card, again, just in case my opponent has the recursion. If I had the ability to pop that trap card as well, I'd also be able to get into a high Wave King, but we're pretty much working our way towards going for the OTK lethal play, which is basically bring back Shavara, link into the Amber Whale. Keep in mind, you are not Fiend locked when you bring back the Shavara through Princess's effect. You're only locked when you bring back via, or summon it down via its own effect. We're now going to the new rank 10, the Varadus. This is going to give us the OTK, and this is where you're going to be able to see how it happens. So we attack with the Amber Whale, and Amber Whale is going to be up by 600. We then use Varadus' effect, or you use Varadus to attack, and then use his effect to pop the Amber Whale. And in doing so, you then use Amber Whale's effect to bring back the Princess, and then that completes the OTK. So this is a bit of a combo that not many people are familiar with if you don't play this line. But the idea is your Amber Whale has gone in for 32. Your Varadus goes in for 3k, and then the Princess goes in for 27 to finish the game off. So that's your OTK route. We're now moving into game 2. So we start off with Saphira. Again, Voiceless Voice going first on this one. I've opened up pretty well. I've got 2 Super Polys, but I actually find out that I've made a fatal error in this particular matchup. And yeah, it kind of derails my play. So a bit of a preview on that one, I'm afraid. But just kind of give you an idea. So you can kind of see the Saphira going off, making its play, getting into the Skull Guardian. It looks like there is the main deck Saravas in there, or I say main deck, the non-ritual Saravas in there. We've got a Trias in the hand, which isn't ideal, but you can use it as your ritual fodder. It means there's also not a low. Is there not a low? Which is quite interesting. I'm surprised low wasn't used. Maybe they're worried about the imperm. I know the Skull Guardian can get you the low, but if I imperm the Skull Guardian, that will slow everything down. And now, as you can see, the difference is that they actually had plays before using the Prosperity, as unlike Game 1. So in Game 1, they had to use Prosperity to dig for a starter, which means they didn't really have much else. Now they've using Prosperity as an extender. So they've already pulled out a hand trap, so it's definitely a better strategy. But they had a bit more to play with. So Imperm, and I was like, please don't have any, please don't have any. And then the last card was a Diviner. I was like, no! If you had like milled anything else apart from the Diviner or the low, then that mill would have been a major whiff. But getting the Diviner, I was like, damn, that's a good one to get. I wouldn't really have changed anything, to be completely honest, because I feel that if you didn't imperm the Skull Guardian, or if I didn't imperm the Skull Guardian, I'd still be in the same position, really. Like, if I chose not to imperm the Skull Guardian, that still would have got access to low. It meant that the Prosperity could have been saved. Normal summon the low gets impermed, but they still have Skull Guardian and low on the board, so it still means that they can go into Dynamondo, and then they use the exact same play again during my draw phase, which would be a little bit trickier for me to deal with. Obviously, I did have Super Poly, but then Super Poly wouldn't be that good against just a Dynamondo during the draw phase, so it's not that effective for me. Triss is going to trigger Tribune off the Diviner. This is going to get access to the low, so pretty much is full combo. I mean, Voiceless Voice is very... trying to think of the right word. Not rigid, but like... not even rugged. I can't think of the right word, but basically it can eat a couple of hand traps with the right hand. I feel that Voiceless Voice is actually a very balanced and fair deck when you're comparing it to stuff like Snake Eyes and maybe even Tempai. Like, it does have some fatal issues within the deck, and it will get hit by a lot of the hand traps. However, its end board is quite powerful, but then it can also be broken relatively easily with stuff like Super Polys. And I feel that the barrier really did need to have that ability to say you can't target. But I like the fact that it was like you can't target when you have A and B on the board. Not just like a field spell where it's like, yeah, you just can't target during main phase 1, because then that would just get really silly. So, I mean, it's not the best of Yubel matchups in a sense as well, because if you're able to get Yubel on the board with a Nightmare Pain, and that Nightmare Pain stays on the board, you can actually just punch into the Skull Guardian, and you punch into the Skull Guardian twice as you're forced to attack it anyway, and that will pretty much give you game. So it is a bit of give and take with how you're trying to play it. But it looks like the Saravas is in the hand. It looks like there's a trap card and a Magnamute as well. So the Magnamute is something that I definitely didn't expect, which actually hits me later on, which is quite interesting. The hard open of the trap's pretty good as well. So we're going to be summoning down the Saravas by putting back 2 spells. So recycling that Pot of Prosperity. Not that you're going to be activating Pot of Prosperity 4 times in a duel, but you never know. So this end board's still pretty good. Obviously, in days of past, you probably would have been able to keep a Diviner on the board and gone into a Baron, but unfortunately that is not the case anymore. You can go into a Chaos Angel, which is quite effective because, I mean, you'd make it with only lights, and that means that your Chaos Angel is pretty much unaffected, so it's a bit more of a pain in the backside to deal with, but we kind of go with it. So we go into the draw phase. I've got to deal with 1 face down unknown and then 1 card in the hand that I'm unfamiliar with. I kind of need to make sure that Saravas doesn't float into anything too damaging. So we're going to early stages in the draw phase, kind of consider what we can clear off. Now, obviously, Skull Guardian is a bit of a pain right now because it can't be targeted. It's at 41 and it has the Omni Negate on the board. Obviously, you saw that I've opened up Super Poly, so we're in a relatively good position on that one. What you don't see is I've actually opened up 2 Super Polys. So I probably could have played this a tad better. I mean, Super Poly during the draw phase, ditching the Terra Incarnate because that's not an ideal card to have in the hand. I look at Garura, thinking of the plays I'm going to make, and don't worry, we do correct this. Obviously, what I didn't realise is, well, I do realise a little bit later on, that Garura is the same type and same attribute. Whereas Mud Dragon is, I got confused between Mud Dragon and Garura, and so we do correct it quite quickly. So I look at Mud Dragon and I'm like, oh, can I Mud Dragon with the next 2, which are 2 fairies? So what I've done is I've done it the wrong way round, and I was just checking the Skull Guard, and this is where obviously we correct it and say, hang on a minute, I can't go into Garura, it has to go into Mud Dragon, and then move on from there. So I think the rest of the hand is a Dark Beckoning Beast, which is obviously quite good in order to try and, you know, get that combo moving, which is quite effective for me. And then we've also got a Super Poly, and this is where the issue comes into play, is that I don't have, like, you start burning through your discard fodder, which can be a little bit damaging. So we're trying to see if there is a Veiler or an Ash in the hand, which there isn't, which is kind of good for us. So we get to go into the gates, and then we've got the gates in play, ready to go. It's just trying to maintain that hand resource, which is kind of where it gets a little bit tricky, and something that my opponent is unfamiliar with at this moment in time, or doesn't know. Turns out I was playing with a 14 card extra deck in this one, and I didn't put my SP Little Knight in, which makes sense a little bit later on as we get to the end of this turn. So we get into the second Dark Beckoning Beast, and now it's really just a question of where do we want to go? Do we want to go into that Yama play? Now, what I should have done early doors is I should have activated, and I correct this later on, is I should have activated Mud Dragon called Dark, so that when I did normal summon down the Dark Beckoning Beast, my opponent couldn't target it with card effects. But I didn't do that, so I could have played around an Imperm along the back row, and I could have played around a Veiler in the hand. So that was very foolish on my behalf. That's probably what I should have done early doors. But like I said, the original play in my mind was Garura, and I messed that up and went into Mud Dragon, which kind of threw me off of my route of play. You see in the rest of the hand, I've also got 1-for-1, which is incredibly powerful. But the question right now looks here when I've got a second Super Poly, 1-for-1 and a Dark Beckoning. It's like, do I discard the Dark Beckoning, offer the 1-for-1, and then if that is an Ash Blossom in the hand, I pretty much lose because my Super Poly can't be used because I don't have the discard in the hand? Or do I activate the Super Poly, clear the 2 monsters off the board with the possibility of more coming back into it? Yes, it would give me a Garura, which might have been a better idea, because then I could have got Garura, discard the 1-for-1, and then go from there. So we're going to go with the normal summon of the Dark Beckoning Beast. We're going to link these 2 into Yama, and I was like, right, okay, what we'll do is we'll start digging for, like, we've got our targets in the graveyard for the gates, and we're going to dig for our Shavara. Sorry. So now as we're trying to build up, again, I'm not really gaining more hand resource, which is a bit annoying in a sense, but being able to kind of move our plays through from here, and this is where it gets a little bit, like, not that, the Magnamute is what really throws me off on this one, which is quite painful. So again, it's kind of like, how can I get the advantage? I've got the 1-for-1, which is massively tempting me to use it to get me into Samsara D Lotus, and everything I'm doing, I'm trying to bait out that Ash Blossom and nothing is happening. So we go for the 1-for-1. The 1-for-1's obviously going to get me into the Lotus, and then the Lotus can now tribute it off. So Shyama's going to get me the trap card because it just needs to be sent to the graveyard. Great on that one. Unfortunately, if that had added to the hand, that would have been amazing, because then obviously I could utilize that to push my plays even further forward. So we use the Lotus. I now feel comfortable that there isn't an Ash. This is going to get me into Spirit. Spirit's effect is going to gain me the Nightmare Pain. Nightmare Pain can then destroy the spirit, and then spirit will then float into Yubel. So we've got search out the Grey Scrummer, sorry, and then spirit floats into Yubel. So we're in a good position. We've now got the ability to do the damage on the board, and this is where I kind of like make a bit of a misplay, because I want to try and get into SP Little Knight to deal with that back row. Plus I've also got the Grave Squirmer that can help me trigger off the Yama, which is what I kind of go for. So we end up using the Yama and the Mud Dragon in order to get into a link 3, which is the Anguish. And we're trying to do the exact same play now. So we're going to use Anguish to link with the monster. We're going to go into Rage. Now this should have been an SP Little Knight, and the SP would have dealt with one of the back row, which means that my opponent wouldn't have the recursion. Keeping in mind that the monster is 2050. So we use Grey Squirmer. Grey Squirmer destroys Yubel, and then we try to trigger Yama. And this is where I get hit with a Magnemute, and I was like, ooh, I should have seen that Magnemute coming. That's where it would have been really, really helpful. And I was like, damn, yeah, he's got me on that one. So Yama goes bye-bye, but I do get the Terra Incarnate, and now I find that I've put myself into another situation that I don't want that Terra Incarnate to stay on the board. Because if I leave that Terra Incarnate on the board, it's going to nuke my board during the end phase. Obviously, it would nuke my opponent's board, so in hindsight, it might have been better to leave it there. But they still search off the Magnemute. Maybe I probably should have... I'm thinking about it more and more now, and maybe I should have kept it. Maybe I shouldn't have... Like, I tried to not so much go for the OTK, but we're going Princess line into the Amber Whale, which isn't that effective for me, because Amber Whale, yeah, it's strong, but it's not as strong as I would like it to be. I've got the Grey Squirmer that can bring back a Yubel, so we're going to do that. I think this is where I misplay as well. I think I kind of, like, made some bad decisions throughout this kind of route of play. So we get the Spirit of Yubel, because I was like, if that gets destroyed, at least I can float into Yubel, which is probably what I should have done with the Terra Incarnate. But I kind of get into my own head and I'm like, oh, damn, I need to get rid of this Terra Incarnate, which isn't a level 10, it's a level 11, so I can't utilize it for anything. Apologies on the glare of the monsters. Obviously, that's why I'm trying to do the commentary as well, so you know exactly what I've got. So at the moment, there's Amber Whale in the extra monster zone. We've got a Terra Incarnate on the board, and then we've also got a Spirit of Yubel. Now, at the moment, I can only do 4,000 damage, and then I need to kill another monster. And for some reason, I think I decided to kill the Magnemute when really I should have killed the Low. But, you know, we're just trying to check the graveyard of what we've got left. I know I've got the trap card there, which can get me back the Rage if I choose to get rid of the Rage. But we haven't even used Gates yet, so I just ditched the Super Poly to bring one back. So the deck is very versatile. We'll go Yama, try and get into the rank 10, which gives us the Omni Negate powers as well. I mean, it's not a bad end board, because you're going to have Rage, you're going to have the rank 10, and I'm trying to figure out the mass on this one. And technically, if I attack with Yubel, it's 2,000. If I attack with Terra Incarnate, it's 2,000. And now they activate the trap card, spinning back the Ritual to destroy a card. So straight away, if this gets rid of the Nightmare Pain, then none of that damage is going to go through. So this is probably where I probably should have gone into the rank 10. At least the rank 10 would have been able to negate it. But they choose to spin back to add a Low, so they've got the follow-up of the next turn should they need it. Because they know it's not going to be game. Like, I can't do the damage through the defense. So I decide to attack the Low because it's in defense to get the damage on board. So like 2,050 times 3. So 6,150. And then overlay, I suppose, get into the rank 10 to get the Omni Negate. But there's still monsters on the board. Like, I still need to kill one of those monsters. And it's like the Magnemute's going to search for a Saravis, which provides with targeted protection. And I'm just debating which one of the cards I wanted to kill off with the Amber Whale. I still got the Princess line as well, which could be quite helpful, but with the Amber Whale still floating around, it is a bit of a pain in the ass. And this is the issue. This is why I need to get rid of the Terra Incarnate, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, cool, I've got the Princess ready to go, and I don't want to firelock myself without the trap card. Whereas in theory, what I should have done is I should have just let the Terra Incarnate go off. I should have just let it nuke the board, and just kind of rolled with it. And I think I kind of just messed up a little bit. So where is it? It's destroy all other monsters on the field. So I would have lost my Amber Whale. I would have lost my rank 10, which would have been completely pointless. So I probably would have been better leaving it as it is. At least at the very least, what would have happened is my Spirit would have been able to float into Yubel. And then in doing so, I would have been able to get... And this is where I wanted to go into SP Little Knight, and instead I have to go into Muckcracker, because this would have been SP Little Knight, which would have provided me with another form of interruption, so that my end board would have been Yubel, which is exactly what's happened, bring back the Lotus, and then I would have tributed off the Lotus. So now my end board would have been SP Little Knight, Amber Whale, and Yubel. So they're then forced to attack Yubel. Amberwell has the ability to float into Princess. It also has the ability to pop a card. It also has the ability to revive the Princess. And now that I know that they get the Saravis in the end phase, I do need to be careful because Rage won't be able to target a card because then it just gets negated with the Saravis. So, and then I kind of mess up with the Lotus play. So this is, again, you can just see how it derails from this point on, which is part and part of it. Like sometimes your brain just switches off a little bit. And this is how you can get caught and, it becomes a costly mistake. But that's why I do these duels, so that I can watch it back and realize what I've done wrong, and also try and, understand the play. So it also helps all the other duelists that play these decks and the other duelists that, face us as well, because then they can see the type of play styles we go with. So we're going with the hard ritual summon off of the back of the ritual spell. So we know there is a Saravis in the hand. We know there's a low in the hand, so it's going to get the full requirements. So obviously there's a top deck of Skull Guardian, which is going to allow it to float back into a low. Now, of course, I can use the Yubel effect. And again, this is where it's not really ideal, is because I can use the Samsara D Lotus effect, which becomes Destroy Yubel that I control, which would tribute off the Lotus, which would also destroy. And then I do the Princess play when I really shouldn't have done this. I don't know why I was trying to do it. So I did Princess to target my Amberwell and then target that. And then that gets hit with a Saravis, which is obviously trying to bait out for the trap card so that I can Rage. And then I choose to chain the Saravis, which is where it got really silly, is I should have let that happen, because then I would have kept my Yubel on the board. And I would have, I really messed this one up. I know I did. Because now I'm fire locked because the Princess has come back, which means I can't float into the Terra Incarnate, which is really what's messed my play up. So this was just a massive, massive misplay. I should have gone, yeah, okay, Saravis protects from the Fire Princess, not to worry. Keep my Amberwell on the board, keep my Yubel on the board, keep the Lotus on the board as well, so that the next card effect that gets activated, I could then try and negate it, and then my opponent goes, okay, cool, chain Skull Guardian to negate. And again, as long as I maintain a Yubel or a Terra Incarnate, they're then forced to attack it. So this is a massive, massive lesson learned, to be honest. The fact that I haven't left anything on the board is real pain in the arse. I really have messed this one up. So lesson learned, big sad. Not seeing that SP Little Knight really threw me off as well. I was like, damn, I thought I had my SP Little Knight in here. And obviously I didn't need it in game one. So when I looked for my extra, I was like, oh, there's something missing in here. I was like, yeah, cool. Probably the most important Link monster of the entire format right now, next to the Princess. So big sad. So we carry on through the Voiceless voice plays. They've now obviously got Magnamute that can be switched to attack. Obviously the Skull Guardian is going to be strong enough to just punch over the Princess. I've got the Trap card that can bring me back the Rage. And I also have the ability to bring back the Amberwell to pop a card. But again, it's not really enough because Skull Guardian would swing, kill the Princess. Princess or Amberwell would then try to pop a card and try and float back. But it looks like we've got just multiple lows on the board now. So we have the option for Link plays. We've got the options for more Ritual plays if we want to. We got the Trap card in rotation, which allows you to get a pop off as well, and that's how you can kind of start to clear the board off, which is quite helpful. So we're gonna get a low. Here's a second Skull Guardian, and I was like, is Skull Guardian hard once per turn? I really hope it is. Just working our way through this one. Like I said, the misplay was worrying about Saravis. That really was what it was. I should have just let the Saravis go through and just let them have the Skull Guardian on the board. So big sad. Attempt to use the Amberwell once they try and destroy the Princess, which will be by battle, I believe. What are we going for? We're going for oh no, because that's what it is. He spins the Princess back with the Dynamondo. So that's quite good actually, because it means it doesn't trigger the Amberwell. So that puts the Amberwell out of commission. And then all I've got left is the Trap card. So I can activate the Trap card. That's just going to get negated by the Skull Guardian, and then it's Skull Guardian for 4k. It's 2k off of the Dynamondo, and then they've still got the Trap card, and they've still got the Dynamondo revival during their turn. So we're taking 4,100. Take the 2,000. So it's now currently 1,850 to 1,700, and I don't think the top deck's that great for me. So I think they pass it here. And like I said, just misplays cost me. Misplays cost me massively on that one. just trying to look through, and I was like, what have I got? What have I got? Where's my Typhoon? I don't play Typhoon. Oh my god, where's my SB Little Knight? No. And then all I've got left is Gate, and I've got one discard in the hand. So it's like, okay, well, if they pop that, I'm in trouble. I could activate the trap card to try and bait out a form of interaction, because technically I could trap card, bring back a Unchained monster. And at this exact moment in time, all I'm doing is bluffing, because I look for my extra net, I'm like, I've got no more dark targets left that could then be used as link material. But they don't know that. So it's like, okay, cool, we're going to have to try and bluff to bring back one of the link monsters to try and get them to negate that, which is exactly what they do. And I'm like, okay. And now it's like, activate Gate, the trap card pops it, and it's, yeah, game, goes on to game 3. So, I mean, there's only like 40 seconds left of the duel. It is pretty much wrapping up here. We do end up getting into a game 3, but I haven't left the recording in here because it literally just, I think we have like a minute left, and Voiceless Voice go first, because I was like, I'll let them go first. I haven't really got burn damage because I chose to take out the Gustav Max just for space. So we kind of just left it there, and I'm like, yeah, I've got nothing left in my graveyard after that. I've got no dark left. I didn't draw a dark for turn, otherwise I could have Nightmare Pain popped it. And we're pretty much scooping it up there. So we ended up in a draw. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Any questions at all, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe and happy dueling.